Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Demai. We are in the 7th chapter, Halacha Vav. We're going to be learning today Daf Ayin Beis. We left off on Daf Ayin Beis, Amid Aleph, 4 lines from the top of the Amid, Amar Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Chanina. We are referring back according to the way the Mahara Fulda, according to the way we will learn today's Sugya, that we are referring back to the middle case of the Mishnah, that when a person has 2 baskets, and again, we are learning that the Mishnah is speaking about Tevel. However, Tevel from which Truma Gedola was already removed, and we are now up to Meiser Rishon, right? Trumas Meiser and Meiser Sheni. And instead of the person removing the Meisers from within, the person chose to remove it from without. So we have 2 baskets. And the person declares, Shalzu bezu, v'shalzu bezu. Says the Mishnah, the first basket is rectified because when he said the words that the maisres that need to be taken for basket A shall be removed from basket B, the maisres of Rishon is to be found in the Sheni. And that declaration already rectifies basket 1, because when he says Meiser Shalzu Bezu, he's referring to everything really. He's referring to Meiser Rishon, he's referring to Meiser Sheni. Comes out that the basket A now is already Mesukah. And even though he said in a moment later, Vishalzu Bezu, that the Meisers that need to be removed to be Mesak in basket B is to be found in basket A, is to be removed from basket A, that statement no longer can go into effect because of the basic rule that you cannot be toidim nor ma'asir min aptur ala chiyuv. And basket A is already pater, it's already masuk. So that was what the Mishnah said in the middle case. So the first basket is rectified and the second basket is not. And the Gemara is going to focus, again, according to the way some understand our opening Gemara, that on this second case, 2 dinner. Din number 1, that when a person made this first half of the statement, which by the way is like in the Reisha of the Mishnah, and it is effective, that the Meisres for basket A, the Meisres that it needs to be removed to be Mesak in basket A is to be found in basket B, even though that normally you have to first remove Meiser Rishon, then you have to remove Meiser Sheni. Since you made a one statement, Shalzu Bezu, both the Meiser Rishon and the Meiser Sheni at the same time, simultaneously, is designated already in basket B. And that in itself is a problem. Now let me go, again, every line over here has big novelties. We already quoted before in the Yerushalmi, a pasuk in Parshas Mishpatim. The pasuk reads, Milei ascha v'dim'acha lo yisa'acha. Look inside Chitas, look inside Rashi and Chumash. Milei ascha, a fullness offering. What does that refer to? That refers to bikurim. The word dim'acha, that which could affect the mai, Rashi says it refers to truma, which is true. Chazal say, you have this a lot in the Bavli, maybe Rashi brings it, that kol sheyeshnoi b'chlal dimua, dimua means anything that has to be separated. And if after you separate it, it falls back in, you have a problem of now we have a mixture. In other words, dimua doesn't only refer to truma, it refers to maisres. Loisa acher. Loisa acher means, the pshat we know, it means don't delay. There's something much more than that. Don't go out of the order. That is mamish, that's already Chumash Rashi. That Hashem is telling us that the Seder of first Bikurim, that's the Seder, then Truma Gedola, then Meiser Rishon, then Meiser Sheni, or then Meiser Ani. That order has to be followed. And if a person is Toidem or Ma'aset in an opposite Seder, they are violating this law. Now, I'm using the words of the Chinuch. Just like we find that some Isuri de Rabbanan are begeder siyog. Siyog means that Hashem said, don't do A. So the Chachamim says, oy bazoi, don't even do B. Because if you're not going to do B, you won't even get near doing A. The chinuch is referring to what we're saying right now. B'lashon our Gemara, a mitzvahs asay, not your normal positive commandment where you have a verse in the Torah. That there is a concept of a siyag midoy raisa for a lav, and we're going to call that a mitzvahs asay, and that would mean that not only may you not remove, in our case, ma'aser sheni before ma'aser rishon, you may not even separate ma'aser rishon and ma'aser sheni at the same time. Because when you remove it at the same time, you did not take off rishon before sheni. And that will be the gavaldik. That's called you violated the mitzvah saseh. And that's really going to be the opening shot in our Gemara again on Daf Ayin Beis. That in this middle case of the Mishnah, shalzu bezu v'shalzu bezu, the first statement, shalzu bezu, it was effective, but again, since you didn't specify, you said shalzu bezu, period. What you are saying is that all of the maasros for basket A should be separated from basket B. All of them means both ma'aser rishon and ma'aser sheni simultaneously. Not first rishon then sheni. It goes into effect, but you violated the positive commandment. What positive commandment? This concept of a siyag lelav of lo sa'acher. And the second statement, here comes even a bigger chiddush. We'll speak it out in the Gemara. Even though it did not go into effect, because you cannot be ma'ased min aptur al achiyuv. Nevertheless, your statement itself is violating not only the positive commandment, but even a negative commandment. You actually violated the meliyos v'dimachal lo sa'acher, as we'll explain. This is the baldik. Like, wow. That will be the first big topic of today. We'll have to read it inside to understand exactly, well, what are you talking about? How did you violate? Where did you violate? The whole statement did not go into effect. The other big topic that we're going to have today on Daf Ayin Beis, more on Amud Beis, is a sugya that comes up on occasion. Remember, Machlokes Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yossi, Tfois, Lashon, Rishon, or not. The ground zero of Tfois, Lashon, Rishon is in Masechtas Tamura. There we're speaking about, the din of a Tamura, that God says, don't do it, but if you do it, it's effective. So let's say if I have an animal that's already a carbon oil, the masha, I have another animal, it's already a carbon shlamim, and I have a third animal that's chulin. If I were to say on the chulin animal that the chulin animal is a tamura for either one or the other, why would a person want to do that? The best case scenario. Their carbon oil, the animal itself, it's worth $5,000. Ooh, and then they found an animal that's worth more money. It's more chashuv. Hashem says, don't do that. Even though you're exchanging a bad one for a good one. For sure not in the other direction. Never do that. But if you made such a declaration, okay? And the new, so the first one is an oila, and the chulin now becomes an oila. What happens if a person says on the third animal that you are tmuras oila, tmuras shlamim? By the way, we're going to see a difference in the girsa between the Babli and the Yerushalmi, which will be very significant. We'll get to when we learn it inside. So if your first lashon, tmuras oila, goes into effect, what is that animal? It's a carbon oila. Can the carbon oila become a carbon shlamim? No. Rav Meir, who says tfois lashon rishon, says the animal is a tmuras oila, even though he said in one breath tmuras oila, tmuras shlamim. The tmuras shlamim part falls to the side. Rabbi Yossi holds, and we're going to call in our Gemara, Rabbi Yossi the Chachamim, that if the person had in mind for the third animal to become a tmura for both, it becomes a tmura for both. Even though he said tmuras oila first, nevertheless, we know what he wanted. It comes that now, by the way, what does that mean? It becomes a tmura. What do you think it means? It means the animal, we have to wait until the animal gets a blemish. Once it gets a blemish, like yira ache yistoiv, you sell it, and with its money, half of it you have to use to buy a new animal, carbon oila, and the other half of the money is used to buy an animal, carbon shlam. You're good? Gewaldig. Now think about how that's mamish related to our topic. Because we're going to learn the whole daf today that it's all referring to the middle case of the Mishnah, shalzu bezu, v'shalzu bezu. Why is it that shalzu bezu, v'shalzu bezu? The Mishnah says only the first half of the statement goes into effect and not the second half. Really, the Mishnah itself says at the end, on Daf Ayin Aleph Amid Aleph, that if a person says Masrei Seyem, Masrei Kalkala Bichaverto, if a person says with one statement, the Maasros of one is going to be for the other, then it does go into effect. Problem is, he said first Shalzu Bezu, and then the Shalzu Bezu. So now we said, once he said Shalzu Bezu, and therefore the basket A is already Masukan, it's Patur. Now A cannot be used for B. But the Gemara is going to say, our Mishnah is only Rab Meir, which is beautiful. That says twice Lashon Rishon. Because if we're going to follow Shitas Rabbi Yossi / Shitas Chachamim, that even though the person said Tmuras Oila, then he said Tmuras Shlamim. Nevertheless, you know what he meant? He meant both. Person cannot say two words at the same time, but halachically they do go into effect at the same time. Then even in the middle case of the Mishnah, we would say what the Mishnah says. On the third case, that just like the Mishnah says, Masrei Seyem, Masrei Kalkala Bechaverto Karoshem, according to Rabbi Yossi, the same would be even Shalzu Bezu, the Shalzu Bezu. That's the link, and then we're going to have more details. Once we do make such a link, we're going to learn many other dinim from the link itself about Teiche de Dibur, La'achik de Dibur, and a lot more fun stuff. Guys, L'chaim, that's the daf that we're going to learn today. Now let's go inside daf Ayin Beis, 4 lines from the top of the Am. So says the Gemara, and just for the record again, that if you look inside the Noisa Kalim, like just if you look inside the Rasha Elio, he quotes our sugya is brought in the Babli Tumura Daf Dalit, and he holds that this statement is going on the Reisha, not on the middle one. That Rasha Elio refutes it. He brings from the Rabbeinu Shimshon the way we are learning, but there is a big to do over here. There's a whole Simchas Torah as to on what stanza of the Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi but Rabbi Chanina referring to. Okay, and again, the Mishnah gave 3 stanzas. Stanza number 1 is when he only said Shalzu Bezu. Middle case, which is the case that we're talking about, he wanted to do both. But the way he did both was by making 2 statements. Shalzu Bezu, Shalzu Bezu. Okay, on that, for the first part of the statement, which actually was effective, even though it's effective, he violated the positive commandment. The alashniya, for the second part of the statement, the second v'shalzu bezu, which we said b'chlal did not go into effect, even though it didn't go into effect, not only is he violating an asay, he's also violating a loisasa. While we look inside the top maraful, so let's go. The first one is easier to understand. How did he violate a positive commandment? The top line, but the second maraful. Since he designated in basket B for basket A, he said Shalzu Bezu. He made one statement. So everything that needs to happen happens in English simultaneously at the same time. The basachas, ka'achas. So that in itself is a positive commandment. What's the positive commandment? So again, we're quoting a chinuch. You're not going to find it over here, but that's the way. That will be the easiest way to learn it. It's not a mitzvah say midoiraisa mamish, but it's something that Chazal extrapolated from the lav of miliyoscha v'dimacher loisa achad. Hashem says, do not separate Meiser Sheni and then Meiser Rishon. And if you do that, you taka violated the law. So if Hashem doesn't want you to take off Sheni before Rishon, we are making a biblical siyag. We understand from this lab a biblical mitzvah say, don't even do it at the same time. Even though you didn't take it out of order, but what you didn't do is you were not magdim rishon and then sheni. You didn't do that. Now, Abel, look, invited in the Marafulda. Abel mishum loy sase. The loises of the Baal Ta'acher, that's the Meliyos of the Macha loisa acher. Like it. Because sholoi ichar rishon ad acher Hashem. Something going into effect at the same time is taka at the same time. It's not that the first came after the second. Because he established it at the same time. Now, since we are understanding that this lav has a implied mitzvah saseh, that means that if a person taka violated the lav, they violated two things. You have to do Rishon and then Sheni. If a person did Sheni and then Rishon, so not only did they violate the positive commandment, they also they violated the proper law. Now, when did he do that? How is the second statement? Let's do this by heart. How is the second statement? How are you taking off the Sheni before the Rishon? So let me say like this, that when I have two baskets, if I do what is normally done, I deal with basket A from basket A. I take off Truma Gedola, I take off my Rishon, I take off my Sheni, doing nothing wrong. And then I begin with basket B. That means I took off my Sheni in basket A before I took off my Rishon in basket B. There's no problem there because I'm dealing with every basket by itself and they're two separate baskets. The moment this person is linking one with the other by saying, Shalzu Bazu, Shalzu Bazu, in such a case, since he linked them to the other, we consider them one big issue. We don't view it as two separate baskets. We view it as one basket. And now, since he was Misakin, Meiser Sheni, for basket A first, Shalzu Bazu, later did he say about what's happening in basket B? That means he's only dealing with the Meiser edition of basket B after he took off Meiser Sheni for basket A. Here's the Chiddush. Even though the Mishnah says, if we are learning, which we are learning, that it's referring to the middle case, it's not going into effect. It doesn't matter that it didn't go into effect. He is attempting to do something. What is he attempting to do? He's attempting to begin with the Meiser Sheni of basket B only after he's attempting to deal with Meiser Rishon of basket B only after he dealt with Meiser Sheni for basket A. He's linking Shazubazu, so we consider them one big thing. So he's actually attempting to be Koinem Rishon after Sheni. That's already the love. Wow. That's the second part of his statement. The Al Hashniya, not only is he violating that saying, because again, he wants both Maisris, Rishon, and Sheni to happen at the same time, he's mamish violating the law Veloisa say. That is the statement of Rabbi Yossi ben Rab Chanina. Again, we are learning it. It's referring to the case, the middle case of the Mishnah. And now the Gemara, let's go right to the Gemara is explaining what he's saying. Because since he says one statement, and therefore Shekava Shnei Shemois means both Rishon and Sheni. He wants them to go into effect, and he was successful. Ka'achas. And that's the implied siyag lefishit asachinuch, and that's what the Gemara means over here with mitzvahs asay. Furthermore, when he made the second statement, the biggest chiddush of Rabbi Yossi ben Rab Chanina is that the second statement, the Mishnah says, did not go into effect. Doesn't matter. The lav is not whether it worked or not. The lav is whether you attempted to do something. Here, not only the asay, but even the lois asay. Because sin shekava shnei shemos ka'achas, again, when you are trying to be mesakin basket B, again, you're being mesakin it at the same time. And A, you are mesakin at the same time. So that's already the asay. Now, where do we have the lav? Because the shehigdim, the meiser sheni, in the first basket, that was dealt with prior to you even beginning to deal with the meiser rishon in the second basket. And the word over here, there's two chidushim of Rabbi Yossi ben Rab Chanina. Number one is it didn't go into effect. Doesn't matter. He's being mechadish. If you are attempting to go out of order, even though halachically what you did was ineffective, you're violating. The other chidush of Rabbi Yossi ben Rab Chanina is that normally, again, when I have 10 baskets, I'm allowed to deal with basket A from the beginning until the end, before I begin with basket B. And I can be mesakin the whole basket B, including Meiser Sheni, before I begin with my sedition of basket C. His chiddush is predicated is that since you're designated Meisers from one basket in the second, this person is treating both baskets like a single batch. That will be the right word. So we treat it like a single batch. Now you got a problem because now you designated Meiser Sheni in the first basket before you are attempting to deal with Ma'aser Rishon in the second basket. Ma'aser Sheni in the first basket is coming before Rishon. Sheni before Rishon, that's Mamash Dalav of Lo Sa'ach.
Even though they're separate baskets.
Even though they're separate baskets, and even though what you said is not effective. Okay.
So he's getting it both ways.
Trying to do that.
So he's violating. Basket A only an Asay. Basket B an S and a Lav. It's an okay. Now, second topic of today, like we mentioned in the introduction. So again, we are referring to the Mishnah and Tamura, and again, the case is, as we'll quote in a moment, I'm going to point out how there's a huge difference in Girsa in the Mishnah of Maislis between the way the Bavli quotes it and the way the Yerushalmi quotes it. But let's begin reading. This is a statement made by Rabbi Lazar. The linkage was made by Rabbi Lazar. There'll be a lot that we will learn from this link, that our Mishnah, and again, we are going to learn that we are referring to the middle case of the Mishnah, that second part of the statement, Shalzubazu, is effective, but the second Shalzubazu is not effective. Even though the Mishnah itself says, on Daf Ayin Aleph, that if the person explicitly said that Masreseyim, Maisres, Kalkola, Bechaverta, if he would have worded it by saying that the Maisres are each to be found in the other, that would have been what he said, Karashem. Why is it ineffective in the middle case? Because he spoke out it in greater detail. First he said Shalzubazu, then he said the Shalzubazu. One might have argued, who cares if he worded it that way? A person cannot be moitza two words at the same time. That's because God Almighty was speaking it. We have to say one before the other. Why wouldn't we say that we know what he had in mind? His kavanah was, like we have in the complete end of the Mishnah, right? So why would it not be ineffective? So that says Rabbi Lazar, it must be that our Mishnah follows Rav Meir. That Rav Meir is the one that says that ein at toifes ella rishoin bilvad. Okay, now just to quote like this, in the Bavli, we're going to have this in Mesechtas Tamura Daf Chafei Omid Beis. I'm speaking about where the Gemara is quoting the Mishnah, the exact words of the Mishnah. And I quote: if a person says Harezu Tmuras Oila Tmuras Shlam, Harezu the chulin animal Tmuras Oila Tmuras Shlam. In the Yerushalmi, as we'll have over here in the last line of the Amid, there is a vav that's very significant. We in the Yerushalmi, we have the same Mishnah by reading Harezu Tmuras Oila V'Tmuras Shlamim. Much bigger chiddush that, because when the guy says Tmuras Oila and Tmuras Shlamim, your mamish, he's saying one thing together. Even in such a case, our Girsa holds, Rav Meir says it's only Tmuras Oila. I want to read the words of the Tana Rabbi Yosi, Amar Rabbi Yosi, that im lekach neschaven tchila. Rabbi Yosi says we have to know what he had in mind. In other words, he's writing that if the person is saying I had in mind oila, then I changed my mind, it's too late. But if lechatchili was mischaven for both, he writes hoil v'i efshel likrois bei shemois ka'achas. You can't say two words at the same time. So the varav, the whole statement is kayamin yirache yistav, and you sell the animal, and half of it is oila, half of it is shlam. So let's read it inside. So it's only Rav Meir that says Iyatu Tevis Elarishon Bilvad, and that is the Tan of our Mishnah. That, and now again another girsa. The Taninon Tamon. That's the way it should be written. As the Rashidilio has the girsa. Harezu Tumuras Oila. You see the vav. The vav is amazing. Tumuras Shlamim. I know some people take it out, but let's gonna go with it. That's the way. That's the Gabaldik link. Even where he adds a vav. Nevertheless, Harezu Tumuras Oila. Because if our Mishnah says that Rabbi Lazar would have followed Shitas Rabbi Yosi / Shitas Chachamim, even the middle case of the Mishnah would have had the same din of the final case of the Mishnah. We would have said that everything is Mesukan. So says Rabbi Lazar. Based on this, turning to the Chaim Beis on the base, now the Amoira Rabbi Yosi is going to extrapolate the following. And let me say this by heart. When you learn Yakir, the Mishnah and Tumura, let's go with our Girsa. Vit Tumura Shlamim. There is a huge nafkamina in almost every area in halacha concerning someone making a retraction as to when did they make the retraction. So we have this concept with exceptions. The rule is toich kedei dibur. If I make a kinyan, right, and within the time that it takes a person to say Shalom Alecha Rebbe or Shalom Alecha Rebbe Yumayri, that's called toich kedei dibur. The person retracts what he said. He is allowed to retract. When it comes to Gittin and Kedushin, there's an exception. When it comes to Hegdish, I know there could be an exception. But there is this general concept of Toich Kedei Dibur. Now, when you learn the Mishnah and Temura, there was a question in the yeshiva when Rav Meir says that you only Toifis Lashon Nishan, even with the Vav. Some people were arguing Rav Meir only said it if you said Harezu Temura As Oilam, you waited Toich Kedei Dibur. You said, some people were learning that way. So that's the way they were learning. That's why Rav Meir holds it's only Tumura Soil. They understood that if a person would have made that statement, then even Rav Meir would be moided that im lekach neschaven, it's both. From the fact that Rabbi Lozer links it to our sugya, this is a raya that Rav Meir and Tumura is even Toich Kedei Dibur. Let's read it inside. Amar Rabbi Yossi is an Amoyr. That Havein on Sovereign Meimar. When we learned the Mishnah and Temura, we didn't know. We were wondering. Ma pligen Ameir v'Rabbanan. The Rabbanan is referring to the Tana Rabbi Yossi, which is obviously not only Rabbi Yossi, or normally the rule is Rabbi Yossi v'Rav Meir, halacha ke Rabbi Yossi. Each one, Rav Meir, not halacha like him, because in Chaver of Yordan l'Seif Devarim. Rabbi Yossi Nemukai Imai B'chlal halacha k'Moisei. Certainly Rav Meir and Rabbi Yossi together. And what was the question? We were wondering, and some people were arguing that they only argue. Really, Rav Meir only disagrees with the Rabbanan only because he said, at least we were saying maybe even Rav Meir will be moide that a person can make both. And what would be predicated upon simcha? Because if we're going to say that a person can retract, if you can retract, then you can clarify. However, now comes along Rabbi Lazar.
Trying to do both means that neither were effective, correct?
Actually, both are effective. Yira acha yistav, and you sell it, and with the money you buy half oil, half shlom. Okay,
as opposed to just the first one.
Exactly, and then the first one you would actually bring the animal itself.
Got it.
Now, min ma do amar Rabbi Lazar, but now so we didn't know that. But now says the Amoyed Rav Yossi. Now we come to Masechtas Demai. Comes along Rabbi Lazar. And he said that our Mishnah is Rav Meir. Now I know that Rav Meir and Temura must be Toich Kedei Dibur. Now I had Amra from Rabbi Lazar, I feel Toich Kedei Dibur. That even if he said Temura Soilav, Temura Shlamim, the way it sounds, he said it all within the same utterance, Toich Kedei Dibur. Even there, Rav Meir says, I ato toifes elam Rishon Nishan Bulvad, or in the Bible we have the expression Tvois Lashon Nishan. Tvois Lashon Nishan. Now, 1 second. What's the raya? I'll tell you the raya. The Gemara says, Dimas Nisa, from our Mishnah. And the Mishnah has 3 cases, 3 stanzas. The Reish of the Mishnah, where he only said that the Meiseres that is needed to be Mesakin A is to be found in B. That was the only statement. The Mishnah says it's good. The middle case of the Mishnah is, if he says both, Zubazu, Bezubazu, only the first half is good. That's the whole raya of Rabbi Lazar. And then the Mishnah said at the end, and Ayin Aleph, the words are that if a person says, Masrei Seyem, Maisreis Kalkala Bechaverto, Karashem. The Mishnah should have said in the Seifa a much bigger chiddush. If Rav Meir is only La'achei Kedei Dibur, which would mean that the middle case of the Mishnah, where the Mishnah says that the second half of the statement is ineffective, Shalzu Bezu v'Shalzu Bezu also would have meant only La'achei Kedei Dibur. Then why wouldn't the Mishnah said in the Seifa, but if he says Shalzu Bezu v'Shalzu Bezu b'Toich Kedei Dibur, Karashem, which is a much greater novelty. The fact that the Mishnah was looking for a scenario where you did affect maestros from A to B and from B to A. Only when you said maestros sayim, maestros kalkala bechavert. Not by you saying shel zubazu v'shel zubazu toichelei dibur. Is a raya that even if you would have said it toichelei dibur, it's still not effective. Why? Because that's Rav Meir. Because Rav Meir holds Tmuras Oila, Tmuras Shlamim, even toichelei dibur is not, the Shlamim is not effective. Dimas nisom, because since the Mishnah, here's the lashon. Masri say, Masri kakol bechaverto koroshein. In other words, the Mishnah is saying the only time you can affect both what you want to affect, that both A and B should have their tikkun from the other basket, is because because Imam made one statement. He didn't say shel zubazu v'shel zubazu. He said Masri say and Masri kakol bechaverto, which means zeh achar zeh. I have to add the words. Yerushalmi is mekatzer. Even if you would have said a toichelei dibur, even there, the second part would not have been effective, because we would say ein a toifes eladishon nishon bulvad. So Rabbi Lazar, by making the link, clarified to us that he understands that Rav Meir's I at toifes eladishon nishon bulvad is even toichelei dibur, and we're going with that. Okay. But now let's understand something. Says the Gemara, again, this is all based on the link that Rabbi Lazar makes. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Avuna, that Moide Rab Meir Lachachamim. And again, if you read one version, you're going to have almost the opposite of what we're reading. So we're going to go with this gersa, that Moide Rabbi Meir lachachamim, not chachamim l'Rab Meir, that ba'omer tmura zu kachteyen. Let's now use our seifa, the last part, masriseya masris kakola bechaverto. Now that we have the link, to be a teacher to the student in Temura. What happens if in Temura he would say that Temura zu tachteyen? That's mamash like our case. That's like the seif of the Mishnah. When he says masris seyam masris kalkola bechaverta, he's pointing to the third animal, the chulin animal. He's not saying tmuras oila tmuras shlamim. He's saying it's for both. Then it would be effective. Chayli shneiim. Or same thing. If he were to say behemazu, the chulin animal is tachas shnei zvachim elu. That's shechalu shneim. It's now that we said that our Mishnah is Rav Meir, Yakir, and even though it's following Rav Meir, if the person says, like we have in the end of our Mishnah, Masris Seyam, Masris Kakolo Bechaverto, then even according to Rav Meir Karashem, then the same thing would be over there. Which it's all about if you put it in one utterance. No matter how you do it, even though this last line appears to be redundant, some people even take it out, but it's true. Again, even so knows we use this link for both ways. Sai, it's Megale, the Pshat and Mishnah and Temura. And then he goes more. Rabbi Avuna, he's taking the end of our Mishnah and he's throwing it to Temura. That even, according to Rav Meir, that even Toichelei Dibur, you can't make any type of modification. But it's all because you said Tmuras Oila before, if you would have said it together, like in our Mishnah, use that same over there. He gave two different options. This animal is for both in English. Then it's like effective. And then even he would be moed in that case, Yira Ache Yistav, and then you buy with its the money that people used to buy it, you buy half oila, half shlam. Half of the money for oila, half of it for shlam. Okay. Says the Gemara, now that we established that Rav Meir Shita and Tumur is even Toichelei Dibur, mashma, that Rav Meir holds that you cannot make a retraction Toichelei Dibur. Mashma, because if you could make a retraction Toichelei Dibur, then who cares that you added Tmura Shlamim? If I can retract, why would I not be able to add? And the Gemara says, not true. Not true. Retraction is something easier than to add. Listen to the logic over here. Says the Gemara. Or the Gemara is beginning with the Kasha. Loi kein Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak b'shem Rav Huna. Was it not said in the name of Rav Huna that Amar zu tmuras oilam? When a person makes a statement, a statement of Tumura, that the halacha is choizer boy, if you have the word afilu or without the word afilu, the toich kedei dibur. Rav Huna saying, and he's saying this b'shitas Rabbi Meir, that you could make a retraction. So shkoyach that Rabbi Lozer made the link, but it's not true. Rav Meir holds that you can retract toich kedei dibur when you designate a tumura. So why would we say what we're saying? That's the Gemara's kash. And the Gemara answers, the Gemara clarifies, I'll tell you the difference. Khan goes to Rav Huna. Rav Huna's statement is even let Rav Meir. And yes, Rav Meir holds that when you make a tumura, you can completely retract the toich kedei dibur. You know why it is effective toich kedei dibur? Because b'mischaven livchois, you are reducing the kedusha that you put in there. You wanted to make it into a tumura, which has kedusha. You're saying, a choizer boy, I retract it. To remove the kedusha, you are able to do it. Look inside the Mara Fulda, in middle of the chunk under the Gemara, 8 lines before the bottom. This is going on Rav Huna. The Amrinon that says, even according to Rav Meir, that you could make a retraction by Timur to Dibur to have a chazara. That's Kisha Amar Shadat Hoya Livchais. It didn't mean to do that. What's the Amar Tmura Shlamim the Loila Heavy Bikadusha Hamura Shal Oila Ella Bishlo Shlamim Oz Havale Chazara Lukula Alma. So Simcha, when he's the Maraful is adding some information that when the Gemara is saying that Rav Huna is saying that according to Rav Meir you could be choizer toich kedei dibur, it doesn't mean that you are completely retracting your statement, making it back into chulin. What you're saying is a guy says Tmura Soil said no. I only want it to be Tmura Shlamim. That statement toich kedei dibur will be effective. In a case where your intent is to completely remove the kedusha of oil, which is a higher level of kedusha, kolel taktar, completely burnt up, right? Kachem, so many levels. Shlamim is kachem kalam, and you're making it into a shlamim, and a chanami Rav Meir holds you could be chayzer. But the im amar, but if I'm reading right in the Marafulda, which is the case that we are learning, especially with the vav. Tmuras Eilam, Tmura Shlamim. That at the heavy Nami Shlamim, dear Pligi Rav Meir, Rav Yosi, even Toich Kedei Dibur, Rav Meir Tfois Lashon Ishon, Ve'ein Hasheni Chayil Klal, and Ul Rav Yosi Tarvayu Chali. Lefishakach L'schavel Lechatchila, but a human being cannot say 2 words at the same time. V'yef Shaloishner Mekachas. Let's read it inside. Kan b'mischavel Lahoise. Wow. So if I want to add, I can't. If I want to diminish, I could. And mind you, adding, you have to appreciate adding. Adding is not financial. Actually, you're taking half of the animal's kedusha of oil out, so to say, and you are imbuing it with shlamim. Everything is a novelty. One might have argued that's also called livchais. How is it lohaisiv? You're not adding. You're taking off. It's not going to be fully burnt. Half of it is only kachei kalam. We don't view it that way. Because if you are leaving your first statement intact, that's the word of Rav Meir.
It's like the person that made the statement, was he intending for this animal to be both?
Yes, he was.
Or to be one, and then he changed his mind.
He was intending it for it to be both. That's what we're saying. Rabbi Yosi is the one that argues, since your kavanah was to do it both, I don't care that you worded it. There would have been a better way to word it, right? Which is what we learned before. If he would have said the words by Timura that behemazu tachashnei zoach,
the wood. They're both in agreement that he was trying to do both, as opposed to when we're talking about this case of reducing it. We're saying no, his intention was not to do both. Was he had one and then he tried to reduce it to
That's
another.
correct. I just want to say in the whole sugya of Toich Dibur B'chol, how does retraction work? And I want you to know, I want to just clarify my question. That, there's a rule, Amirase Ligavoya Kemisirase Lahedit. So let's speak about a kinyan. I make a kinyan. Means I make a sale. Let's say kinyan Meshicha. I make a kinyan Meshicha. Means you have this cup of coffee. I bought it from you. I took it from you. There can be a retraction. Why? How does it work? I made Meshicha. So it's important to understand how it works. That every kinyan is comprised of two parts. There is the Maisa HaKinyan, which is needed. In Hegdish, the Maisa HaKinyan are the words. Okay, the Amir or Ligavoya. And then there is the Gemiras Das. Actually, we have throughout the Achronim, what is the Iker? But for sure, you have to have Gemiras Das. So the general rule is that until when a person actually sees, let's say you're selling me this cup, when you see this cup in my hand and you accept it, that is when you have Gemiras Das that you're selling it. If you have in mind to sell it to me for a lot of money, you still don't have Gemiras Das because you don't really know what it would look like. So in other words, the reason normally that there is a concept of Chazara, Toich Dibur, generally with exceptions, is because we say there was no Gemiras Das until you actually see the action happening. The big exception is Gittin and Kedushin. Speak about Kedushin. That Kedushin is something of such great weight that a person has Gemiras Das before they put the ring on. I know some people that are married are going to say Lav Dafke, but Chazal say you had full Gemiras Das. Then you have retraction, which you can never retract. And to some degree, the same thing is with Kachin. That because of the severity of Kachin, we are saying that that's the way normally you would learn, that you can't make a retraction. You can be matin nedit, but you have to do an action to undo the first action. But you can't just reach, there was Gemiras Das. Here we're saying it's not so pasha. It's that lumdis that we learned as children over there in Babli is not working over here. Here we're saying a big thing. Here we're saying that there is a concept of retraction, but you have to know what type of retraction. And look at the irony. Diminishing is good. Adding, you can't. Adding, you cannot. It's gavaldik. Adding is that's the direction that we always go in. Forget diminishing in Kedusha is something, let's say, not okay. Why would you diminish? Even by Tamura, the Torah says, these are the words of the Chumash. And the way many learn the Pshat, that the reason why you're not allowed to give a better to a worse is for you later not to give a worse for a better. In other words, we don't want for you to go on the down. Here we're saying the opposite, that going down Rav Meir, we accept what you're saying. Because again, the Meschav and Lichvais is not a retraction. The Meschav and Lichvais means is that you're clarifying that what you meant the whole time was a shlamim. You never meant an oil. And Afuna saying that according to Rav Meir, it works. It works if you clarify what you said. But even though you had in mind both oila and shlamim, since you're not taking away the kedusha, you're trying to add to the kedusha. You cannot do that. So my whole Gemiras Das, this whole lamdis that we have in the Babli, doesn't work over here. It has to be another logic as to why sometimes why sometimes not. Anyways, we'll stop over here and to be continued.